Hi, and welcome to Complete and Cast, the official podcast of Complete and Box video games. Today, in episode 53, we are doing game review number 20. Wow, can you believe it? Parker.
I can't.
20.
20 years.
And how many of them are Resident Evil games? Let's be honest. I think it's
there's a lot.
6 or 7. I think 30% of them are Resident Evil games.
I mean, we played all but we're working on 4.
Yeah.
Well, no, because we didn't review 1 or 3.
Nope.
So
we don't have enough time in the world for me to talk about 3. That's enough there.
So what we've done? So there's 7.
Yep.
And then Rev 1 and 2. Did we do?
We didn't do 1. We did 2.
We just did 2 because that's multiplayer.
So I think it's 5. We did 6.
So that's 8, but 2 of them we're not gonna do probably 1 and 3.
Yeah.
This one. Yeah,
that's a lot. Might do 1 remake. Anyway, so today we are talking about Resident Evil 2, 2019.
Yeah.
So, this remake came out recently. You may have heard of it.
It's the remix.
It's the remix. It's the remake remix. One thing I want to make perfectly clear when we're talking about this, we are just talking about the 2019 remake.
Right.
And this is an important distinction because I've played the original, Parker hasn't.
Yes.
But
I did when it came out, but I never beat it.
Yeah, never beat it and hasn't played it for a long time.
It was very hard, and I just quit.
So, this is just about the remake, and I'm going to do my absolute best not to reference the old one, because I find that is not a fair thing. I like to view these pieces of art, right? Art as their own thing, you know. So it's not fair to compare it to what it was remaked, especially in a review setting. So as a quick reminder, both of us give on a scale from 1 to 10 with 0.25 increments because we can, out of story, gameplay, graphics, sound, fun factor, and replayability. Then we add that all up, divide by 6. That's math for y'all out there. And then that gives you a total. The lowest game we've ever done is a Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 6. Will this one be lower or higher?
Isn't the highest game also RE7?
No, I don't think it ended up being RE7. We talked about this last time. I think it was something weird. It might have been Doom.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, no, it might have been even weirder. It might have been like Darksiders.
It might have been like Arkham City.
Yeah,
really like that. Just something you wouldn't think about. All right, so yeah, let's get into this. So Resident Evil 2 2019, we're not going to use that remake term because it's a game. It's the second Resident Evil ever to come out in 2019. You are rookie beat cop Leon S. Kennedy. Or you are spunky...
What's her last name? Claire?
Redfield.
Oh, right.
Yikes. All right, Parker has to be excused real quick. Or your spunky... ponytail wearing Claire Redfield.
Yeah. And she's... I don't remember the original. Is she way spunkier? Because she seems pretty...
No,
pretty
so this is one of the only times I'll reference the old one. In the original, all the characters are very the voice acting is pretty bad, so that makes it tough. And they all end up.
That's Resident Evil for you.
They all, but it's not as bad as the first, luckily.
Gotcha.
But anyway, they all come off as flat, and you're like, okay, they'll just be like, whoa, and you're like, cool. And then obviously with the technology of the time, it is what it is. So let's say it this way: there's 2 different quests here. There's Leon and Claire's.
Right.
In Resident Evil,
in order to play the whole game, you have to play them both back to back in one or other order or the other.
Yes. And I'm going to say 85-90% of the game is the same throughout both of the quests, but there are some key differences. There's key items you get that's different. There are key weapons. Yeah. But in terms of the story, the cool thing is there's 1 or 2 unique characters you meet in both. We'll try to just make this a whole... just a whole piece of the puzzle kind of thing. So, right. Leon, you're entering Raccoon City. Things have gone not great. No. Raccoon City's having a bad time. Yeah. After, of course, the mansion outbreak in Resident Evil 1, which is on the outskirts of Raccoon City. You can imagine it's more like...
You said happened in May?
Yes. And then this is September. This is September, yes. So you're entering, it's Leon's, get this, First day on the job. Can you believe
got
it? Gosh. And he's entering,
fresh out of the academy.
He's entering Raccoon City, and you realize very quickly entering into the city that something is wrong, and there are these things, and they're probably zombies. You meet Claire, and
she's looking for her brother.
Yes,
who was in the first one.
That's very important. Her reason for coming to the city is she's looking for her brother. You enter the city, and as you do, you are separated by a huge explosion, and depending on whose quest you're playing and in what order, you start on. Imagine like you're a big tanker truck comes through, and one of you's to the left and one of you's to the right.
That's essentially both jump two different ways to get away from it.
That's essentially how they play it. Like one person has to go a slightly different way to get to the main place, which is the police station.
Right.
So one of you essentially takes the front way, one of you takes the back way for that.
The one thing that's interesting, like even though their stories differ in the ways that they differ, no matter if you play it A or B, the intro for each section to get to the police station is A or B specific. So if you start as Leon A or Claire A, you go to the front door of the police station first, and you're the first one to get there. Either if you do Leon or Claire, you both get to the police station first. But when you play as B always gets there second and comes in a back door.
Yes.
And they get there after the other person has already left.
So let's actually mention that real quick, because that's actually one of the, I guess I don't want to say the plot hole because that's silly, but one of the parts in the plot that I was like taken aback by.
Right.
So like, let's just say you play as Leon first. Let's say Leon first, right?
Yep.
By the time you get to the area where you meet Claire at the police station, it's, even if you're like on a speed run or whatever, like 15, 20, 30 minutes. And obviously for a casual game, it's going to be much more. Because you have to do a lot in the police station before you get to the exterior where you see Claire and you're like, oh, Claire. But in Claire's quest, you get to that spot in like a minute. So what there's like, it's not like, oh, they could have easily explained it by like, oh my god, I was knocked out. And like, okay, then fine.
But and especially even more of a plot hole, right? So when you are in B quest and you first meet up with the other person at the police station, so that scene in A quest takes, like you said, like even if you're going fast, like 15 minutes, right? But then all you do after you talk to them at the gate is run back like 25 feet to a small room. You open it and you get the key that opens the door you were just talking to the other person at, and now you can get into the police station. So you run 25 feet, you get the key, you run 25 feet back, you unlock the gate, and now the person is already gone out of the police station into the next area, and that is even longer than 15 minutes. That's like hours, because that means you're nearly done with the police station and you'll never be back.
And throughout the quest, one of the things that surprised me was how little interaction there was between Leon and Claire. There is like, so there's the opening, obviously. There's that one brief scene where the one's inside, the one's outside, and then I don't think you talk to them again for like 2/3 of the game.
Yeah,
it's like
there's a point when you talk to him over the radio.
Yeah,
and then there's a point where you talk to him over the video.
But there might be literally 3 or 4 times where they like. So, and that took it a little way from me. Now, I guess story is the one place where I should reference the older one.
Yeah, I think that
this isn't going to affect my grade of it. But in the original one, they did have more times where they're just like, if you're playing as Claire, you walk into a place and Leon has just killed a zombie, and you're like, oh, dang, blah, 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 blah. And it's like a little more like realistic there.
Right.
Now, I think some of the reason is for the gameplay, in that there's like less like cutscenes in this, and it's more of like, there's less safe rooms, it's more of like, the bad guys can be anywhere, and I guess maybe it was tougher for them to do that. But at the end of the game, when they're like...
There's a decent amount of safe rooms, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But you can very easily meet up with Leon in a safe room.
At the end of the game where they're like, I can't believe we made it, and they're like, spoilers, walking away and whatever, I'm like, y'all have talked for like 10 minutes. Like, it's not even like, like even if you say the drive into Raccoon City was long, it's like, literally like... Each scene is like a minute where it's like, and it's like, at the end it's like, wow, let's go start a life. It's like, so that part was one that I didn't like quite a bit. There was like very little interaction there. So you enter into the police station. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of non-story stuff that happens. Right. You meet your old friend Marvin Barrow, or Bra, I forget how you pronounce it, and he's not really important to the story, to be honest with you. He just kind of helps you through the police station.
It's a little bit sad if you play as Leon first. Either way, eventually presumably you'd play both. But with Leon, like, he's this rookie guy coming in, and this is going to be his boss, like his police chief, and they like have like a bit of banter and connection, and it's kind of like, okay, cool. And then later, obviously, you know, as it would be with any zombie-related thing, like, the guy that you kind of like then turns, and it happens, like, off-camera, like,
I know he's sick. Neat. Yeah.
You know he's sick, and you know he's, like, getting worse, and then you leave for a certain amount of time, and when you get back, like, there's just a zombie in the main area where he was, and it's his model, and it's, like, very, like, oh, no, and you have to, like, basically decide whether you want to just like avoid him every time you go to the main room or kill him, and then you're like, it's like, it was actually like a thing that like when we played, like, I did not do, like, I just left him alive and just always made sure, like, I'm running back to the main room, let me make sure whatever. He's very easy to avoid because it's a big room with multiple ways to go. So it's not like that hard to keep him alive, but I had a connection in that regard, and then I was like, oh man, I don't want to do it.
So the main difference between Leon and Claire happens at the latter part of the police station, where you meet your unique characters.
Right.
For Claire, it's Chief Irons, who is just... And Sherry Birkin, a young girl who we'll go into a little bit later, I guess.
Yeah.
So Chief Irons is a bad guy all around. You find all these notes saying that he's just bad. Like, you know, he's
basically like he and the rest of the town is in on this, like, this thing with Umbrella, where they like have an orphanage and they're literally testing on children different serums and, you know, trying to get like the right mix or whatever, because that's, you know, Umbrella, evil corporation, is always doing stuff. So they basically have like infiltrated this Raccoon City town to like be all corrupt at the levels of power. But like the chief of police is not in on it. Or no, I guess he's the chief.
He's the chief.
Whoever your captain, I guess. That guy isn't in on it, so he's like, what the, you know. So like it's interesting to kind of play through that, but like, yeah, so this dude's a bad dude all around.
Sherry, you find out, is the daughter of a lab dude for Umbrella, William Birkin, and she's looking for her dad. I guess we'll keep that as that for now.
Right.
As Leon, you meet Ada Wong, a very confusing character if you've ever played Resident Evil.
I mean, you've probably heard our review of 6, I'm sure. And that's Ada at max level weird, where like you're like, what is your motivation? Where are you coming from? What are you doing? Why are you like superhuman?
And she's always been like that, even in the original. And like they do her pretty well. So you meet Ada. She's kind of your tag along. She says that she needs to she gives you a lie. She tells you she needs to, I think, find the virus to like send it to the government. Or,
she's part of the FBI.
Essentially, like, I need to find the virus to help you out. You meet a very minor character who's fleshed out more in the original. Ben, he's a reporter who in this one dies in like 1 minute.
Yeah.
He helps you get out. And honestly, at this point, we're like mostly through the story, because like after the police station, most of it's like non-really important story stuff. Right. So
there's a lot of game in the police station, but not a lot of story.
Yes.
Like you're just like figuring out puzzle, which like I don't know if they said this in the original, but in this one they mentioned it, and I remember when we were playing it, we were making a joke about it, and then later I noticed that there was like a section where they talked about that the police station used to be a museum.
No, that is not. Yeah.
Okay, so in the remake, it used to be a museum, and they converted it into a police station. That's why all these crazy puzzles and weirdness is in it, because the museum was created by an eccentric guy, and so they built it like as a fun way to like harken history and can combine it with other things. So that's why there's like statues and symbols and this and that in order to open doors.
That was definitely a meme back then,
right.
where you would be like, why did Chief Irons do this? And why did he do this? So, like, it's an answer, but I think it's one that, like, a lot of people ask, like, tongue-in-cheek, I guess, where it's just like, why is this so weird? You don't really want it, like...
Why you didn't have to ask with RE1.
Why is the mansion? Yeah, but like
it's a mansion.
The mansion also has like I guess that's true. It also has crazy
like
stuff.
Like mansion you would expect to be weird because it's somebody built this house. They can do whatever they want.
Just add
but
the
a
word
police station, you're like
eccentric there,
I don't
and you're
get
like
it.
makes sense.
Right, but a police station, you're like, wait, what? Like this is a place where you like actually have to get work done, and like it's weird. But
so as you're continuing on, you this big deformed thing is coming after you. It gets more and more deformed as it goes on. You find out that actually ends up being William Birkin, Sherry Birkin's dad.
Right.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
You also meet Annette Birkin. This is mostly in
you meet Annette in both.
In both quests, yeah. She is the mother of Sherry. Right. You find out that William was loyal to Umbrella, but then
once he discovered the G virus,
yes.
Is that the fancy one?
Yes, the G virus.
So once he discovered the G virus, he basically like started to take ownership of it because he was like, this is my life's work. I built this, and I don't want Umbrella just swooping in and like taking it for their own and selling it and all this stuff.
So Umbrella does swoop in.
And yes, so they basically like all like back him into a corner, William Birkin, where they're like sending in SWAT teams to like get the G virus that they like, you know, own. And this guy like basically injects himself with it because he's like, if nobody can have it, if I can't have it.
Here's a very important difference. It seems small, but it's kind of like a Han shot first kind of thing, where it actually becomes a very important thing. In the original, the only reason that William injects himself is that so he's freaked out and whatever, right? And he walks to a table and he accidentally knocks off like something off the table, which makes a noise. And one of the gun toting guys shoots him.
Right.
And like the commander's like, stop. Oh well, whatever kind of thing.
Well, I mean that does happen in this one too.
I don't remember that happening.
So they have a showdown and they're like, give us the virus. And then this guy in the back, who like when you watch the one video, it's from that person's perspective, shoots him.
Oh,
and the
so
commander of the SWAT team turns around and is like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, you know, like he's like gets in his face, like, you know, like shaking him, like, you just, you know, ruined the op, like very mad. And the guy doesn't respond, and it makes you wonder like who that was. Like clearly that could have been a character that was infiltrated the SWAT team, that was like, just kill William Birkin. Like, that Umbrella was like, because like the reaction isn't like a rookie, it seems more like they didn't, like they knew what they were doing when they did it, but the commander didn't know that was supposed to be, like, so there's like this division or whatever.
In the original, they make it clear that it's a mistake, that it's just like the guy was freaked out or whatever, but yeah, so he injects himself. I actually forgot about that. So he injects himself, and as
he's like got bullet holes in him, so it's like
imagine
basically saving himself.
Imagine how bad you like turn when you get like a residual bite from this, like you turn into like whatever. So like imagine you just like literally inject this thing into yourself. It's like, so throughout the game he just gets worse and worse. Also probably the coolest thing in Resident Evil story history happens in this scene where they, especially in the original one, show that the reason that it spread so fast in the city is a la the bubonic plague. Rats got like residual tubes and then just spread it around. And I think that's like a really cool rationale for being like, whoa, and like it's
like how to get to
happened.
The city.
Like this stuff has like happened in history, so like it makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you continue on. Let's see.
And like Annette is like sort of like watching her husband evolve, but also at the same time she's like a scientist at heart, so she's like, this is a rare opportunity to like see how the virus works, so she's like still in like scientist mode even though it's her own husband. So there's like an interesting like dichotomy of her being like, interesting, it shouldn't be evolving this quickly, and then like being amazed at their own like work, like because she helped William like with this creation of the G virus. So like watching it in action is kind of like terrifying, but at the same time, like, if you created it, you're almost like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it could do that. Like, kind of like, like everybody always says, like, things like when certain games get made, like Portal or something, and then the game developers watch, like, YouTube videos of speedrunners and being like, I didn't know you could do any of this. And, like, they literally made the game, and people have just, like, figured out how to do stuff with it. So, like, it's that idea where you created something, and now you're, like, seeing it in action, and it's like, she wants to be upset, but at the same time, she wants to, like, learn more. They fleshed her character out in a way that was interesting.
And in the original, she is definitely a better character in this one, because in the original, she's just pretty much like, you can't take William from me. And in this one, she's a little bit more, like, understanding.
Yeah,
so,
she helps you a bunch, like, to try to contain him, but also, like, she doesn't, like, necessarily want him to die, because it's still her husband, but also she wants to, like, see what the G virus is capable of. So there's, like, a lot of interesting, like, conflict.
At some point you find that G, which is what we'll call William from now on, because that's what they officially call him this, that G's only purpose at that point, since it's mutated, is to reproduce.
Right.
So, and, like, for whatever reason, the closer the DNA match to the actual G, the better. So
the host.
The host,
G
yeah.
or whatever.
It, like, does better. So you finally realize why he's been, like, following Sherry around this whole time.
Right.
So he puts the whatever in, like, inside her mouth or whatever.
Yeah,
it's hard to not make that a thing.
Yeah,
it's
basically like this,
like a little
like a face hugger type thing from Aliens, but
yeah.
it goes inside of you and it, like, gestates there, and he's doing it to a lot of people over the course of the game, and most of the time the thing just bursts out of their chest and dies
because it's just like not good enough.
And sometimes it becomes an enemy you fight in the sewers that's like a big giant thing, but it's like all messed up and deformed, and so, like, sometimes it half succeeds, probably because, like, it's somebody who's human and, like, has the similar traits, DNA or biologically, as William Birkin, and because he's just, like, literally infecting, like, everybody from his lab and everybody that he comes in contact with over the course of the game. And so, like, you like, sometimes they half work, and they're still terrifying when they half work. So, like, who knows what Sherry would turn into, like, when he, like, it injects this thing in her. It's like, oh my gosh, like, this is bad. Like, because, like, this thing could be more powerful than him, because, like, that's usually how these things go. Like, in Aliens, the alien's crazy, but then the thing that, like, the facehuggers are crazy, but, like, when they gestate and then burst out of somebody's chest, that becomes, like, the xenomorph, and they're, like, terrifying. Like, the more that happens, like, the better they get. They evolve, very quickly. Or
so you pretty much go through. You eventually save Sherry. You get that thing out of her.
You get the antidote or whatever.
You pretty much get to the end. You fight William. You get on this train. William's still there. You got to get him off. I think that was something that was only in B in the original. And
well, no, that isn't.
Oh,
that
it's only in
isn't,
B in this one. Okay, yeah.
But so in A, the ending of A is the same on both. Where basically you get on the train and then Leon or Claire show up and is like, "Oh, hey." And that's it. Literally, they're just like, hey, you're there.
A is a really bad ending. B is much better. So, like, you get out.
Yeah, it's really, like, it's almost like it's not the game. Just playing one character on A is not really playing the game.
So, pretending that we don't know that other Resident Evil games exist, at some point, Ada falls down a huge shaft to her death. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. And you realize that she has been working for some, like, not FBI, like a bad company the whole time trying to get it. And Leon's like, I've been duped.
Yes.
By a pretty face. By a dame walking into my office. And, so she falls to her death, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.
Yeah.
And you realize she's a double agent and all that. So that pretty much ties up the loose end of, like, literally everybody in, besides you, Claire, and Sherry is pretty much dead. Because Annette gets killed by William, and just everyone kind of... And then, of course, the lab that you're in explodes. So anyone, even if Annette was like, I'm still alive, but well, you're not now. So you pretty much leave, and you get some... you actually walk out into, like, the desert.
Yeah, you're just like
and
out
you get some
somewhere.
really awkward dialogue at the end where Sherry literally just met Leon,
right?
And she only knew Claire for 12 hours,
and both her parents just died in front of her.
Right.
Like she watched her dad mutate into a monster and get killed, and then her mom basically injects her with the antidote, and then dies at her bedside, while Claire is standing there. And then, it's just oh my gosh, and, Claire hugs her, and then they, walk out. So, literally that's it. Her parents literally died within an hour of this conversation. And Leon and Claire have talked a cumulative amount of, 10 minutes. And they're, walking off into the sunset. And, Sherry saying things you should adopt me. But... I didn't dislike this because I feel like Resident Evil, over the course of time, is kind of campy. Other than 7, it's very campy, and that's in a fun way.
No, even 7's campy because Jack is constantly campy.
But it doesn't. In my opinion, Resident Evil usually, whether it's intended or not, doesn't take itself too seriously in that it is a horror thing, and horror movies generally have a feel to them. Even though Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, is campy AF, but it's scary too.
Yeah.
It's soup scary. I feel this kind of it would be weirder if they just were we did it, we made it out, and we're all serious with an ending. So I think that was a nicer ending, to have it be funny banter as they walk off.
I guess I would have liked it more if they talk to each
interactive
other more.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I don't expect it to become a co-op game where it's you're here again,
right.
But it's legitimately again, after I specifically remember after you see the other person outside of the police station, I don't believe you physically are in the same room with them again.
No,
you talk
until
to them a couple times on
you talk to them over
devices,
remote things, yeah.
But literally, it's literally,
and there's a moment where Claire there's this moment in a cutscene where you're fighting a boss as Leon, who we haven't even really touched on yet, but you're fighting this extra character, and Claire gives you the rocket launcher, and you up all the way up at the top of the ramp that she knocked it down, she says some kind of badass thing about being and now we're even or something, and it's a cool moment, but Leon doesn't know Claire gave that to him. She just gives it to him. Leon has no idea where it came from. He's just is what? And then it's cool.
I thought that's Ada that throws it down.
No, it's Claire.
It's Claire?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it shows her, and she's
oh, okay.
Now,
I thought it was Ada, because it's definitely Ada in the original.
Oh, I'm pretty positive.
So let's really quickly, just so we can wrap up the story, talk about Mr. X, which is the big dude that follows you around. He doesn't really affect the story per se that much. So what Mr. X is he's a tyrant.
Right.
Tyrant like the boss that you fight at the end of RE1.
Right.
Although he is a more advanced tyrant. The tyrant in RE1 has is super strong and super fast, but has a lot of problems, like the big old beating heart on the outside.
Right.
Not a good design, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna make the ultimate bioweapon. So Mr. X is an advanced tyrant that pretty much is given the I guess the DNA order or whatever to just, at least in the original, to just go after you and kill you, to kill any remaining survivors and all that, just to make sure that Umbrella's nothing gets out. No one can be Umbrella did this, I was there. So that's pretty much it. Now, gameplay-wise, we'll talk about him a lot, but in terms of story, he just follows you around. He doesn't really give up, and he's just...
And he's one of the more terrifying things in the game, for sure, because when you're in the police station, he can't... The only place he can't go is a safe room.
Is this story related, though?
Oh, I guess not. Yeah, you're right.
We'll segue that into gameplay then. So I think we pretty much hit on the story. I'm ready to give my grade for this. So I was there were two big disappointments for me in this story, and unfortunately, like I said, this is the one part where I can't really help but compare it. For gameplay wise,
sorry. Before we continue, you were right. It is Ada that kicks it down.
Okay, good. So like I said, story is the one place where I will compare it to the old one because like you can't in a remake go too much different. You can't be like Claire died, you know what I mean? Because like she didn't. You know, she's in plenty of other games.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I feel that they took a couple steps backwards in this. One being, as we mentioned several times, that I don't like how there's like no interaction there.
Yeah.
And the second is, I feel like the difference between the A and the B quest is so small that honestly, if someone was like, "Do I have to play the second one?" I'd be like, "Not really." I'd be like, "Did you enjoy the game the first time?" Sure. Well, then great, do it. You know, just go through it, whatever. You know, now you'll know a little bit more. But like,
exactly.
A and B quest in the original are much different. Mm-hmm. There are many unique areas. Yes, it is still in the police station, but it's different enough. But this one, they kind of like put all their money in one basket, and like
the only thing that's different is like different codes.
Yeah,
but everything else
like in the B quest of the original, Mr. X is in it, and in the A quest he's not. So that alone, you're like, dang, that's different enough. But in this one, they're like, nope, he's just in everyone. So and again, that is actually a big thing story wise because one of the reasons people always put RE2 so high is they're like, well, there's two separate quests in one game and they're different enough. It's like, well, this one it's not. Like it just isn't. Yeah. So might have gone a little higher, but I was when we went through it the second time, I was so stoked to do the B quest because I'm like, man, there's gonna be a lot of different stuff and like, yes, there's some, but there wasn't enough for me story wise. So I'm looking at a 7.5 on the story there.
Yeah, I will give it an 8 only because as much as the like again, I can't compare it to the original as much, but also like I feel like for a Resident Evil game, like some of the NPCs in this like are really like well done. Like that scene where you were in the gun shop.
Yeah.
It's really, really.
By the way, there's going to be a DLC where you like play as him, Kendo.
I might dislike this after that, but the scene that takes place where the gun shop in this is not like the original, right? Like I guess a bunch of different stuff happens, but in this one you still go to the gun shop and interact with this guy who like has his daughter who like clearly is turning and like his wife already has, and like whoever they got to do the voice acting, and like this is a scene where like sandwiched between all these like snarky quips from like Ada and Leon back and forth, like with Mr. X attacking them, like you're just like, okay, this is silly, and then all of a sudden it's just like, this is what it looks like if people start turning into zombies. Like this is what reality looks like, and you're like, oh shoot, like, and they did a really good job with it, like as good a job as I've seen from like zombie related media, where like it felt very emotional, and like the guy like it was really, I thought it was really well done, and the girl's like, you know, asking for her mom, and he's like, you know, mommy went to sleep, and it's just like rough, and like he goes into the room and he's like, just leave us alone, and like slams the door, and it's like, it was well done, and so there was a few moments like that were really like well done in my opinion, that I was like impressed with, like as compared to even RE7. Like RE7, like, you know, had a few moments, but a lot of it was weirded out because of the weird like lip syncing, and some of the voice acting was odd. But like this, I think was like they're getting better and better with like hitting like actual like emotional story moments mixed in with like fun moments, and so I would give it an 8 for story on this.
So let's head over to gameplay. It's very good. If I was going to make it as short as humanly possible there. So they take, again, not to compare too much, but if you're like, I know everything that's going to be in this because it's a remake, they like take it and you're in the same settings, but they change it around enough that you're like, oh damn, like even it's kind of gameplay like me and George were like, where's the gun shop? Boo! But then you realize that you do it like afterwards, and like after the police station, excuse me, and it's just so cool. So yeah, they change. We don't really have to go into all the small ones, but like everywhere you're like, oh, where's this? You know, spade and club and whatever key. I've got to get all 4 of them, and then you realize you only get 3 of them.
Right.
That's what you do. And
Right.
there's this. The police station is, a joy to go through. After the police station, just like the original, it becomes a little bit more linear, except for the one sewer part, which is all crazy.
Yeah,
and
running
whatever.
around. Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much to go through. I really don't want to go crazy here. The guns you get are cool. The fact that they took a little bit from RE3 and you have like gunpowders that you can mix. That's really cool. The biggest I guess I think the thing that everyone was talking about when it first came out is Mr. X. And they do such a, like, the original one has like 3 or 4 like pretty crazy moments, but like once you know the game, you know that he only comes at specific times and doesn't follow you everywhere. Well, in this one, he follows you everywhere, and especially I think it's in I forget whose quest it was, but like there's one where you meet him through a cutscene, so you're like, oh, and there's one where
it's B. Every B in A quest you don't meet him till like
he moves
a long time through.
He moves the helicopter, right?
Or at least you do see him before that.
Oh,
you do
okay.
see him before that.
Okay.
But like you do see him a bit before that. But in B, you see him like immediately. Like you walk into the police station and there's a laptop and you look at it, and instead of seeing the video of the cop like dying, which is what you see in the A quest, you just see Mr. X walk up and smash a camera, and then Mr. X is following you from the beginning of B quest. But A quest, you get like a good like 20 minutes or a half hour of gameplay in the police station before he like shows up, and then it's basically the same thing where he's just everywhere. Anytime you're in the police station, he's there too.
Yeah.
You just don't know when you're going to see him again. But they did a really good job with the way the atmosphere happens, where like you hear him clumping around in his big boots, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
The only rooms he won't go in are safe rooms, obviously, typewriter rooms, or where your storage box is. So those are the only rooms. Every other room, even if it's a tiny door, he'll get in. And there's one room where you're like, it's hard for him to get in, the one hallway. And you're like, oh, cool, I'm safe here. And you start running, and he smashes through the back of this one room and then creates a new opening. Like, and it's just like, oh, my God. It's so terrifying. But, yeah. And the fact that you can't even, like, quote-unquote kill him, like, where it's like, oh, you deal him enough damage, he disappears till the next part. Like, no.
That's
the only thing
how the original does.
Right.
Yeah.
The only thing he'll do is if you deal him enough damage, he goes down on one knee, and you could run away. And the one thing that's nice about it, like, it would be impossible if it wasn't that he will not, like, run unless you are standing still and he has a straight shot at you. Then he'll run to do, like, an attack. Otherwise, he walks at a very, like, steady pace, but not fast. So you can learn to, like, manipulate him through passageways. But it does make the police station stressful, and you're running constantly around. And if you run into another enemy while he's chasing you, it can get really hairy. Like when I would be like weaving him around, and then I walk into a room and there's one of those liquors or whatever. I'm just like, oh, this sucks, because like trying to attack, like trying to like line up shots and stuff while Mr. X is like right around the corner is like just the most terrifying thing ever.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest improvement there. It's just so good. They clearly took a pretty good amount from Resident Evil 7 in terms of like just the gameplay in general. Like, just really has that kind of feel, and that's not a bad thing at all.
No.
What else to go over?
The one thing that's a little bit weird, like, I mean, and this is like a gameplay choice, is that like regular zombies are like bullet sponges.
Yes, the game. I guess that's a good thing to get into. The game is not meant to be easy.
No.
Like Resident Evil, the original ones. Like once you know what you're doing, like you can, I've done plenty of runs where you don't save and you just beat it or whatever. Like this one is like meant to be tough, and it's really meant to be one of those where you have to try to avoid everything you can.
Yeah.
Because
you have very small amount.
I've never seen a single game have more like these zombies take more bullets. It's it's like 8, 10, 12 bullets, and like again, they do also a really good job of until the very end. Even though we kind of picked everything up, you're never like, dang, I got a lot of stuff. Like once you get to the end, you're like, all right, I got a lot of stuff. But
yeah, and usually the thing that happens is you don't have a lot of stuff for the guns that you're using for the regular enemies. So you're always running low on like shotgun and handgun ammo, because like you're using that to dispatch the majority of enemies, and you end up stockpiling stuff for like bosses, which makes you go, oh, I guess I could have been using these like acid rounds or incendiary rounds on zombies instead of stockpiling them to this degree. But it was just like, you just get so worried that you're going to get to a part, because this is what happened to me. This is why I never finished RE2 original. I played RE1 and then, with some friends, and then was like, okay, hey, let's try this RE2. And like, we played it and we were like trading it back and forth and and we ended up getting to a spot where we had saved it, and there was just so many enemies, and we had like 5 bullets. And it was like, in order to get past that part to a part where maybe we'd get some more bullets, was just like, we tried a bunch, and then it was like, the prospect of starting over and saving bullets was just like, nah, not game for us, and we just stopped playing. So this game definitely is that same style, where you're like, if you're crazy and wasteful, you will regret it.
But yeah, there's also a really good variety for a game like this. Like, the puzzles aren't super bad. You got like a lot of areas that you can return to if you want to. Like, that was really cool how like even after you leave the police station, you can be like, there's like one area like way far in the game where you're like, wait a minute, and then you like head up this like ladder and like you're literally in the police station again, and you're like, dude, like that's cool. The bosses are pretty cool and varied. There's one where everyone hates with where you have to get William to stand in front of this crane that hits him. But like, it is what it is.
It was.
Like,
I mean, it was. Once you got the hang of it, it worked.
The only problem with gimmick fights
hard.
is like a gimmick fight. Like, once you do it once, you're like, I get the gimmick. It's just like there's some in RE4 that I like gimmick ones, and some that I don't like because you're like, I get the gimmick. Like sometimes you just want like a standard boss fight.
Right.
So yeah, like I said, I'm thoroughly impressed. It's just very tight. The stuff that it does is purposeful. Like, it's not like, oh, this zombie takes 2 bullets, this takes 9. It's like, now they always take like 6 to 10. Like, that's just is what it is.
Right.
And it definitely keeps you going through, especially the first, maybe your second playthrough. It makes you want to like just keep going through. Enemies are a variety. They're all different difficulties, and most are very hard. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add to gameplay. It's rock. I mean,
the one thing I'll say, since we're on gameplay, is there is a part in both quests where you play as the unique character.
Yes. Okay.
For your mission. So if you're Claire, you play as Sherry, and Sherry's section is a little bit interesting because it's like you have nothing. Obviously, you're a little girl, so you're just hiding and crouching is your whole basic thing, and you have to proceed through this area where you're getting chased by the chief and Chief Irons or whatever, and then you have to like steal a key from him and get back into the area. And it's just like a lot of sneaking and then running and then running away from him, and so like that it's pretty stressful. There's not really anything like super unique, but it's pretty cool like to switch it up a bit because you've just gotten through a part where you're like attacking a ton of things, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have to just like sneak around. And then with Leon, you play as Ada.
Everyone hates this part, by the way.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, she has this weird mechanic where she has this like gun that is like a hacking gun, and you can like see X-ray, like you can see wiring in walls, and you can like basically short out like junction boxes to like make a thing turn on or off or open a door or whatever. I mean, it's a little bit like weird. Like it's a weird part. She gets chased by
Annette?
Mr. X,
right? Yeah,
and that it's just a weird like section of her because she doesn't really have much. And it's always weird because you run around and you're picking things up, and then you're like, wait, what? Oh my God. Like, I'm not playing as this person in a little bit, so like I don't need to worry too much about picking stuff up. But you do need to get some resources to get through her section. But yeah, like the hacking thing is kind of like, again, like you said, it's a little gimmick thing, and then once you know it, it's like it becomes something that you just are like, oh, I gotta do this, and like I can understand why people might dislike Ada's, because her gimmick is like a little bit more involved than just like hiding and knowing the good places to hide. It's like, oh, I gotta use this thing, and I can imagine if you were like playing this game over and over, especially if you were trying to speed run it. I'm sure Ada's section would just be like a nightmare, because like it's very time consuming to do it.
But yeah, overall, like I said, rock solid. I have very little complaints. I'm looking at a 9 overall here.
Yeah, I'll definitely right there with you. I'll give it a 9 as well for the gameplay. I did like this gameplay even more than RE7, which I liked a lot.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
They just seem to be building on what they had, and like the things that didn't work in the first one work better in this one. And there's some like a few little things that are really, really nice, like when you pick items up, you can immediately combine them, like, and they're like a few little features that just make the UI a little bit more streamlined, and like I really appreciated that. So yeah, I like that a lot.
Makes you wonder if future ones, because this one they could not have made first person, because people would have just lost their minds as a remake. But it makes you wonder if they would go for first or third person in the future, just because it's like, you know, they had to do third person for this, and both work just fine too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and like they both add their own level of like terrifyingness. I mean, I would say I prefer the third person. It makes me a little less stressed out. RE7 was extra stressful because you can't look behind you at all unless you look behind you. Whereas third person, you can kind of like gauge where somebody is behind you, and it makes it a little better. But yeah.
So heading over to graphics, they are very good.
Yep.
Let's not focus on the good. Let's focus on the few qualms we have. The characters' faces look weird. Sherry's face is very weird looking.
I mean, I like it, but I can see how it could be weird.
I find it weird.
Unappealing.
Like, it's unappealing. Yeah, there we go. It's not like, I don't expect them to all be like models, but like some of the faces are just very unappealing. That's my only major. I was trying to think about like any major complaints I have, but besides that, like seriously, it looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, I like all the models in this. I think they look unique enough and realistic enough. Except Leon and Claire both like do look like separate, like in that everybody else looks like they have this like level of, and this happened in RE7 too. Everybody else looks like they have this level of like grime and they're like really like worn out, like Chief Irons and like the captain, the police captain guy, and William and Annette, and like, you know, even Sherry. Like they just have this like level of like they've been through a lot, and they just look haggard and run down.
Mean, the Leon and Claire did just get into town.
Yeah,
so
I guess, but it's just like
that could be a rationale for that.
Yeah, for sure. It's just that it just makes them set apart a little bit. That like even by the end of the game, when you're interacting with Annette and you're Claire, you look like pristine and perfect, and like Annette looks like like she's been run through the ringer.
Yeah.
So this is very like, you know, a little bit whatever, but I personally liked their models, but I can see how if you didn't find what they did with Leon or Claire appealing, like how you could be annoyed because that's the one you see the whole damn time.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, that's my only major gripe. I mean, I'm still looking. And oh, by the way, the atmosphere, which is always part of this, is fantastic.
Yep.
They really set it up great with that. So
they definitely didn't go as crazy realistic as RE7, where like everything's like hyper detailed. Like I guess they wanted to keep it similar to the old one. So like it still feels like a video game. It doesn't feel like RE7 like at parts just was like, is this real life? Like is this like live footage?
You can do with first person.
Exactly, that definitely.
So yeah, I'm looking at an 8.5. I think it's
yeah. I would give a 9 for the graphics, because I did like I did personally like the models, but yeah, and I liked how in the one of the features, and probably because of the fact that they worked hard on it, you could like look at everybody's character model in this like thing that you unlock, and you can like zoom in on them and rotate them and like play through certain animations, and like it was kind of cool because there's like certain bosses, like I mean like Mr. X obviously, but also like William at various levels of evolution, where like he looks cool, but like you're fighting him and you just don't have time to look at him because you're just like and then you're just dying. So it was cool that you could like sit there and really zoom in and see all the little details they did to the models in that section. So I like that a lot.
So heading over to sound, this is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of music in the game.
No.
And the main reason for that is so you can hear Mr. X coming at you.
Yep.
Because if they had
that
music,
was an interesting mechanic.
It would be very weird.
Yes,
know?
It was an interesting mechanic, the Mr. X thing. And the only thing I'll say is when Mr. X is chasing you close by, there is some music that starts up. But that's when you know he's like in the same room. But like when you get away from him, then you can just hear him and it's quiet. And that I think is cool. But I like that mechanic a lot. But yeah, it means that they can't really do music until like you're done with the Mr. X part. Yeah. And then they can start doing music like for the later boss battles and stuff.
So I hated the sound design in Mr. X's boots. He wears these, like, he's a huge dude, he wears these boots, and you can kind of hear him stomping around. I could never, ever figure out if he was close, if he was far away, if he's above you, if he's below you. And I know that games can do this, because games have done this before.
Yeah.
And I've played, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I've played games where you can tell if someone's below you, if someone's above you. You can never tell. And I don't know if they did that on purpose or what, but I feel like if you're not going to have music and you're going to have him stomping around, you should be able to kind of have an idea if he's to your left, if he's to your right. And it was very...
I would say, I feel like that's possible that you maybe were playing it with too many distractions, because when I played it through by myself, without anybody else talking and everything, you can tell, because there's a difference with there's a sound when he's in the same room, you can hear the rest of his like accoutrement jingling as well, like you can hear like his zippers or whatever, and like that means he's in the same room, and if you don't hear that, that means he's in a room next door, and then you can also tell a little bit if he's upstairs. But I don't know, that could be TV based. You know, like it could be the TV upstairs we were playing it on maybe didn't have like the capability, or maybe we just weren't hearing it right. But I'll only say that I think that if you went back and actually played it through quietly without any distractions, that you'd be able to tell a little bit more.
I could see that.
But there is still something where you don't quite know if he's in like the room behind you or the room in front of you. But I think that's on purpose, because like they want to make it like a little bit more stressful, kind of like just like like the idea of tank controls being like there for a reason that makes it more stressful.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some aspect to it like that, but there are some nuances to his sounds that help you tell whether he's in the same exact room or something like that. But yeah.
I also think that the voice acting has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Some characters, like Ada, I don't know if it's the same as Ada normally is. Like, she's great. Like, Kendo, the gun shop guy, was great. Chief Irons was great. But I think Leon and Claire's was, like, pretty average if I'm being, like, nice.
Right.
And, like, not great if you're being not so nice. So, like I said, some of them you're like, cool. But then when the main characters are, like, not great voices, you're like...
Yeah, I can see
okay. That. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was up and down. So, yeah like I said, I wasn't thinking average, because I do like the ambience and like a lot of the sound effects. So I'm thinking a 7 for that. I can't go too much higher on that.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'll give it an 8 because I think that the Mr. X sounds like really like was a fun idea, and like it's very meme worthy. I've seen a lot of memes based around Mr. X, and I love them all because it's just so terrifying. And once you get through the game and then it's over, you're like can look back and just be like, man, that was scary.
Now, let's go to fun factor, and let's put a little asterisk there. Fun factor for a game like Batman is different than fun factor for a game like RE2.
Yes.
Fun factor, I think, also includes, like scare factor or hype factor.
Right. And I was like, just like the feelings you get from the game, whether it be scary, clearly you're going into it with wanting those feelings. So, like, you go to a horror movie, you're going to get scared.
Yeah.
You're not like, dude, that sucked. I didn't laugh at all. Like, okay, well...
But, yeah, so like I said, is this game fun? Actually, yes, kind of.
Yeah.
In terms of survival horror, it's about as fun as you can get. I've played a lot of survival horror games that I like that are, like, not fun. Like, Silent Hill 1 is, like, not fun, but it gives you, like, certain other comparable feelings. But this one actually is kind of fun. Like, so it has the mixture of, like, very, very honestly scary. I don't know if we hyped on that too much, but, like, it is very scary.
Yeah,
like, it's
absolutely.
very... Like,
I mean, even independent
I was
of Mr. X,
surprised
it's scary.
I was surprised as to how constantly scary it is. A lot of it's Mr. X, but a lot of it's the other enemies.
I mean, also, like, the fact that the zombies are a bullet sponge is actually makes the game scary, because even a normal zombie is terrifying. Like, because you're always worried that you're gonna, like, be like, should I kill this one? If I don't, like, whatever. They're very, like, agile. Like, when they lunge at you, it's like you don't have a lot of moves set, you know. You don't have, like, dodge, like, where you can, like, do a cool move. Like, you gotta be aware of everything in your surroundings. So when you get surrounded, even by just 2 zombies, you're like, I hate this sucks, you know what I mean? So, like, you're always, that level of scariness is there constantly, even when you're not facing, like, the main bosses. Like, it's still just scary all around.
But yeah, they I have very few qualms with, like, the police station and the whatever. I don't particularly like the sewer area, and I don't think anyone really does. Like, it's one of those, like I feel like someone would want to do the police station over and over, but once you get the general idea for the sewer, you're like, can I just skip this? Like, I feel like you would just want to do that.
Right.
The sewer in the original is, like, very short. You can beat in, like, 5 minutes, but in, like,
this
one
long.
It's like a labyrinth maze kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, like I said, it just feels like a bit too much in that area. And, granted, they wanted to make it longer, I get it, but, like, it's one of those that once you, even the first time, you're like, oh, cool, we're done, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. What about is the lab similar in RE2, where it's, like, a lot of, like 3 separate areas, and you're, like, solving...
It's decent. Okay. It's decent. It's nowhere...
This is pretty big.
Police station is by far the biggest, but, the lab has... the
lab's decently sized in this. Like, the lab is almost as big as the police station. It might not have as many...
It's definitely a little bigger in this one. There's that big center, I guess centrifuge or whatever, but you only go to 2 different areas, and they're, like, not huge, although you do go up and down in them. But, this one is much bigger. Like, even the plant room alone is, like, friggin' huge.
Yeah, it's like a whole area. Yeah, and then that's not even the last area.
I mean, it's weird to say it for a game that, like... So, the speed runs of Resident Evil 2 2019 are shorter already than the speed runs of Resident Evil 2 PS1, but I like... You couldn't convince me otherwise that it's not a longer game. It just is. Like, there's some weird stuff like that where it just happens where you're like... I'm not convinced that it's a shorter game just because the speed runs faster. I find, like, an average, even, like, an above average playthrough is a little longer than RE2. I don't know if it's the simple fact that you can't skip cutscenes in the original one or what.
Got it.
But, like, it's a pretty good length of a game. It's games like this you can't have be too much longer because they're I don't know. It's just like God of War can't be too much longer than it is. The old school kind of ones, just because there's, like, a fatigue that gets there. Even though you can obviously save and quit and whatever, they're just like, this again. Like, games by this kind of nature can't be, like, 20 hours long. You'd be like, what in the heck, you know?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And the only way they can, like, A Last of Us, although I'm sure, obviously, the speedruns are very fast, is when it's, like, very heavily, like, you get past an area and it's like, here's a ton of story. And Resident Evil's never been like...
Right.
Like, you get to the lab and it's like, here's a 20-minute cutscene. It's, like, never going to happen.
Gotcha.
So, again, that's and I think that's a good thing for the fun factor for me, is that it's like, I didn't play it and was like, dang, that was it,
Yeah.
But I was still like, oh, like that's a pretty good length for that.
But on the downside, because there's so little differences between A and B, it ends up being that like.
Well, that's gonna go into my next.
Yeah, because you would think that like, fun factor wise, oh, this is a short game, but then I can play these other one and it should be different, and then it isn't. So that is a little bit whatever.
That's definitely a more major kind of thing. But yeah, like I said, overall, it's scary. It's tense. It's definitely something that's worth everyone to play. Even if you only play, you pick your favorite Leon or Claire and just play it.
Yeah.
And then your second time through, just put it on baby easy mode just to see the small differences. I think it's worth it. So yeah, fun factor for me, I'm looking 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say, the one thing I'll put in for the fun factor though on my end is that like when we played like RE5, I know we don't like. I'm not trying to do a comparison, but like with our Resident Evil games, there's this aspect where you like play and then unlock stuff, and like I did not, like feel like I wanted to, and I think that had to do with the fun factor part of it. Like playing the game harder and harder just didn't seem fun because that aspect of it, the aspect of like certain things getting harder, and they already seemed hard when I played it through the first time. I'm like, no thanks, So I'm gonna go a little bit lower and say 8 on that fun factor because I did enjoy it and I did get scared and I did enjoy all those feelings, but then there wasn't the like extra part of like that that extra aspect of wanting to unlock things and all that. But.
So let's head over to our last one, replayability. Now, this one's going to take a lot of major hits from me. The major one being that A and B quest are very similar, where I feel like if you almost feel duped into doing the second quest. Like, they're like, play second quest. Excuse me. And you're like, oh, I know. Like, in the original, blah, 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 there's all these differences. And then you play the second quest and you're like, oh, Yeah. Let me put it this way for how I feel about replayability. Trevor wants me to do this as a CIB Let's Play. And, like, I just keep putting it off because I don't feel like replaying it. I don't feel like... so with Let's Plays, our videos, we only have so much time to do them per week. So you really have to practice. You really have to make sure because, like, you know what you're doing. Because, like, we have 2.5 hours a week, if that. Yeah. So I can't be like, oh, was that there? Okay. Like a casual playthrough, it's great. You're like, hold on, let me pause and look this up or whatever, right? Yeah. But like with a Let's Play, you have to be like, no, I know where I'm going. Even if you have a cheat sheet, which I often have, you have to know where you're going and know whatever. And like, that feels exhausting to me. Mm-hmm. Like, it just does. Like, it's a longer game, everything's all different. Like, I would have to memorize all this stuff, and I, like, gotta be honest, I just, like, I'll probably do it eventually, but, like, at least right now, I don't... Yeah. I just don't feel like it, which is crazy because... Generally, I would, and like Parker said, in a game like RE4, we're going through that right now for one of our next upcoming ones, spoilers, like, I'm almost done, and I'm instantly going to start it over. Right. I know for an absolute fact I'm going to start over, because you get to keep I think, all your stuff, and that's then awesome. they give you. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, but that would. But then was RE5.
They give you.
I mean, RE5 was like that.
RE5 took straight off it. They give you other things.
And you told me that you were like, oh, this is very.
They give you
similar
other things you can get over time and whatever. But like this one, it's not like. Yes, you get some items when you do some certain things. Like they have like this checklist at the end where it's like, oh, you get the infinite knife now or whatever. But like, it doesn't seem worth the.
I feel like if they made some of the. Because the game is so hard already, that if they made some of the infinite weapons a little easier to get, like a low-hanging fruit, then I would go, okay, you know what? I'm going to shoot for getting that infinite ammo thing. And then, because the game is fun going through it, it's just, there are certain parts that are so hard that I'm like, I don't want to worry about item management when I'm just playing through for fun quick. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, let me use this weapon, let me switch out. Like, it's like, no, I want to have a weapon that I don't have to worry about. It doesn't have to be the best weapon, just a pistol. Just so that I, like, can dispatch regular dumb enemies without having to worry about, like, how much bullets I'm using. And then I would probably play it through and get, like, S-class ranking and play it on the hard difficulty. Like, I'd probably give it a shot at least. But because it's, like, you have to beat the game, you have to get it, like, an S ranking in normal mode in order to unlock, like, the unlimited ammo pistol. And I'm like, no thanks. Like, that just does not sound fun to me. I would just be, like, doing it over and over and getting, like, frustrated with myself, and I'm like, that doesn't sound fun at all.
So when you look at a lot of pieces of art and entertainment, the difference between something that's good and average or a masterpiece and very good can be very small things. In fact, a lot of times, we've talked about it before, it can be one thing. One of the questions I always like to kind of ask everyone is, like, pick a game and change one thing about it. Pick a game you love and change one thing about it, and that would make it completely terrible right there. And, like, you could. Like, you could pause the video right now and think about it and be like, oh, if they did this, you know,
right.
it would, whatever. So that's how I kind of feel about Resident Evil 2 2019. It's a very, very good game. It's polished, it's nice, but it's like a step off of a masterpiece. Let me take that over to RE4. It's going to be no surprise when I talk about it. Like, I love that game. Trevor made a really good point the other day, since I'm replaying it. RE4 is a constant stream of, oh my god, it's this moment again. Yeah. Like, everyone has them in games, and most games have one or two.
Right.
Whatever. There's a certain boss in Mario RPG that I'm like, oh my god, this. Resident Evil 4, after the first chapter, is literally, especially when you get to chapter 3 and 4, is literally every single room you enter and you sigh because you're like, oh, dude, this, right? And yet you want to keep doing it for whatever crazy reason because it is a tiny step above of RE2. It's like on the masterpiece level.
Right.
There are, you know, certain things like that, and it's mostly only in games, because in movies you can kind of like fast forward if there's a scene you don't like. You're like, Godfather's perfect except for this scene. Well, just fast forward, right? But you can't in RE2. You can't be like, I want to beat the game, but I want to beat the sewers. You know, it's like or skip the sewers. It's like you got to do it.
Yeah,
you know?
Sorry.
But for some reason, games that are just like so perfect, you're like, all right, whatever, I'll grin and bear this part, you know, whatever, and, like, I still love doing it. And like I said, RE4, when we get to it, is literally, like, Parker was like, he's on chapter 2 now, and he's like, oh, is it really going to be like this? I was like, dude, if you think it's like this already, just quit the game, right? Like, just delete your save file, because, like, the second you get to chapter 3, every room, when you replay it, you're going to be like, oh my god. And then you don't realize it because the game flows so well that, like, the next room, like, the hardest room in the game, in my opinion, I think you're going to agree when you do it, the very next room after that is nonsense too. So, like, finally when you're done with it, like, there's a checkpoint and whatever. But finally when you're done with it, you're like, ah. But then that game's not just like, it's not like a Last of Us where, like, here's a 15-minute cutscene. It's like, you look at the room and you're like, oh my god. You know, again. And like I said, that's the big difference between something like that and something like RE2, which is a very good game. It's very polished. I do feel like they were... I feel really good about Resident Evil moving forward because they were constricted in many ways doing a remake. Yeah. That's one of the things about a remake. You can make it different, and they did a really good job of that. Yeah. But you still have to stay with the source material. The story still, for the most part, has to be that. Like, Chief Irons can't be, like, alive, you know, because then it would be like, oh, RE8, he's alive and doing all this crazy stuff, and Ada can't die, asterisk, you know. So, like, you're always, like, you're constricted. Just like when you're, like, Devil May Cry. Okay, Devil May Cry 2 is a prequel. It's like, well, you know some things. Right. Like, if you meet a new character in Devil May Cry 2, they're either going to be, like, dying, or they're going to be, like, exiled. Where they're like, oh.
Or they'll somehow morph into a character you know and be like, I was this person all along. Or some dumb thing.
So that's the problem with doing remakes and prequels and stuff like that. And, like, all things considered, I will say I am biased in that RE2, out of all the original REs, is not my favorite. I like 1 more. I like 3 more. I would probably put it on the same tier as Code Veronica, although maybe a little bit higher than Code Veronica, but I definitely like 1 and 3 more.
So you don't like Code Veronica?
Oh, I like Code Veronica.
But I mean, like, it's lowest on your tier?
Code Veronica is actually, in all honesty, too long.
And I was wondering that because that's one of the few that I played all the way through.
It's literally too long.
I was like, and when you were talking about the fatigue thing, I was like, am I just bad at this game, or is Veronica also really long?
The first part, like where you go through as Claire at that island, it could be an entire game in itself, right? And then you get to Antarctica and you're like, okay, cool, and you do this whole thing in Antarctica, right? And then you literally start as Chris, and you're like, oh my! And now granted, Chris's is less long,
right? But still,
but you have this whole thing to do back at the island, and you're like, it could be 2 games.
I honestly got halfway through Antarctica and then was just like, this game's so long, and then there was still all this more. I was like, damn,
and you're like, damn, Chris, and they don't really say Chris is going to be there until like you beat Claire's, and then like Chris is there, and you're like, what? And then like you meet up amazing. And all this stuff. Yeah, it's honestly like too long. Whereas like an RE4,
right?
At least is set in distinct chapters that you're like, I'm at chapter 5, I can take a break. Whereas like Code Veronica is like, it has a couple breaks like that, but it's not nearly as much.
No,
but anyway, like I said, I never I played it a lot, but I never thought of it as highly as everyone. As an experienced RE person that really loves Resident Evil games, I find it super funny that it's always 2. Like at the store, it's always 2. It's like, what's your favorite 2? Obviously, the new school guys usually say 4, but it's like 2. You know, forget 1, forget 3. You know, I've been watching a lot of videos where people give top 10 Resident Evils, and they're like, well, you know, 3's not as good as 2 because it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be a spin-off, but they just put 3 on it, and it's like, doesn't matter, it's better. It does everything 2 does, but it does better, you know? Which, by the way, since this sold pretty well, if they do a remake of 3, we'll see. I mean, it's not, luckily, like, remakes don't change how I feel about the source material, so, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, like I said, it's,
I feel like I can already guess that you would hate 3 Remake, where you generally like 2 Remake comparatively. But like, I feel like I could just make that bet pretty confidently because you just are too close to RE3.
Yeah, I mean,
like I feel like you'd be like, what? That's stupid.
As long as you just, I don't know. It's like I said, remakes are tough, dude. Yeah. Because it's like you can't cut anything. That'd be ridiculous. Right. You got to stay with the source material, but you can't add so much that you're like, who's this new character? Mm-hmm. Oh, they just died. Cool. You know, kind of thing. Like, you can't really mess with that too much. That's why, like, early on in RE2 Remake, where we're like, oh, there's this police officer. Oh, he's cut in half. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're like, oh, do we? Oh, no, we don't. We do not do anything with it. So, yeah, like I said, going back to the replayability, I don't have... I kind of feel similar to how, even though I didn't play RE7 when we did it, like, RE7, like... was like so much that like it, like not even in terms of length, but just so that like you instantly when you're not like, I want to start this over. You're like, maybe someday, right? And like that's kind of how I feel about this one because it's just constant. Like I just know that like I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna trigger Mr. X and be like, damn it, and just want to restart because you can do it where you don't trigger him until like later. Yeah. So I'm literally splitting this down the middle and I'm giving it a 5.
Replayability.
Replayability. Yeah. Like 1 or 2 would be like, damn, like I really want to die. It's like a Resident Evil 6 kind of thing. And of course, 8, 9, 10 is like, I gotta play this, and I don't know, I'm just not there. Yeah,
I would give it a 6 on replayability because I feel like if I maybe revisited it in a while and like gave it a try after I took a break or whatever. Like I did enjoy running through it quickly. So Spencer and I played through it on Leon A, Claire B, and then while we were finishing that up, I started a Claire A, Leon B on my own just to see what the differences were. And Spencer was like in and out when I was playing that. And we determined, obviously, that there's 0 differences, or very, 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 very few differences. So, not worth it, you know, and what we were talking about. But because I knew the game a lot better, playing it through again was fun. Like there was some aspect to it that I was like, okay, but once I got through it, I was like, I don't want to play this again. So like maybe if I took a break for a while and like revisited it, like maybe when Spenser finally does the LP, like maybe I'll then be like, all right, you know what? Because we were borrowing a copy from George, so like maybe after I watch the LP, like maybe I'll be like, yeah, I'll pick it up and actually try playing it again. I don't know, but so I'm gonna give it a 6 because there's an off chance I might play it again because it is pretty and it was well made. I once I was done, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
That was my immediate response. But.
Yeah, which is why it's so rare for a horror game for you to be like, I want to continue this right away. You know, like it's even when I finish a run in RE3, I'm like, that's the thing about Resident Evil 3. It's like especially for a speedrun, like every second you're like, something can go wrong. Like so like even though it's only, what was my time, like 50 minutes, like after 50 minutes, after I do one playthrough, I'm like, I'm spent. Like I don't know how people can speedrun that all day. I'm like
stress.
Emotionally spent.
Absolutely.
So overall scores, we have me with a 7.6 and Parker with an 8. I actually thought that yours would be a little bit higher, like more.
Yeah,
more of a difference than mine, but it just ended up working out that way. We usually only gave like a 0.5 or 1 difference, which is why it's like, and I gave higher fun factor, which helped a little bit for that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's pretty much what we expected. A very good game, definitely worth your time, definitely worth playing.
Yeah.
If you played the remake, the original, obviously we're not spoiling anything because this is a 20-year-old game with that. But next time we have a couple choices. Are we definitely going to do DS3 like eventually as a good, because I played that damn game to do this. I went through that entire
only thing I want to do is watch like a plot synopsis video so that I can get a refresher on all of this.
So we have
Did we really not do this?
I promise. We talked about it, but then you went away for like Christmas and whatever.
I'm like so baffled that we didn't do it.
We talked about it, but so the two we have coming up is Darksiders 3 and Resident Evil 4. Yay!
And Detroit Become Human.
Yes, that's right. Once you finally... Very soon. Literally 6 months later, where literally I'm just going to sit here the whole time while you just talk about the story, because all I remember is like, Marcus is a character. And
every meme of Marcus painting that you've seen online is like, oh, that's all I remember is Marcus paints something. And then it's usually the meme is like, it's Sonic and Mario kissing or some other dumb meme. Bowsette. It's like Lost or Bowsette or something or something else ridiculous like that.
Another idea I had for a podcast in the future, if we ever get to the point where we play 10 Resident Evil games, even if it's just me sitting here talking about it, I want to rank my top 10 because I saw a list that I did not like at all. That of actually a channel that I like quite a bit that usually has some pretty decent opinions.
So you just want to rank the 10 we played?
I'd like to rank there. So there's.
Are you going to rank the ones we're not going to play, like these Wii ones?
There's 13 in the main series that like not the Wii ones like Umbrella. Which by the way, we actually should play Umbrella Chronicles.
Are they multiplayer?
Yeah, just because it's like Umbrella and Darkside Chronicles for the Wii is like House of the Dead in that they're rail shooters, right? You don't walk yourself, but it's the slowest paced rail shooter ever. It's like, imagine, like in House of the Dead, it's like, imagine if like the whole time you're just like walking and they're like extrapolating story, which is fine for like that would be a literal 1 in replayability because you're like I get through it. Nah. Just like imagine like Kingdom like if Kingdom Hearts didn't have skippable cutscenes, you'd be like 1. I'm never playing this game, right?
Exactly.
But, like Final Fantasy X for the PS2, you can't skip cutscenes. Like, I always get the itch to play that game, and then I'm like, you can't skip cutscenes, right? Like, I'm just like, no, thank you. And just imagining how long it is. So, anyway, we've been here long enough. We'll do some more Resident Evil stuff in the future. Darksiders 3, boo. Resident Evil 4, yay. We'll
Detroit,
see ya.
Middle.
Maybe.
Good and bad.
See if I can remember. All right, see you next time. Thank you for listening.
Ayo!